said, I really think my skin is getting thinner. I think that accelerated skin production, skin cell production that is part of what makes psoriasis, I think that's slowing down. I'm Vic, welcome to Nomad Carnivore, and today I'm going to share a personal journey, a lifelong journey, and that's dealing with psoriasis. Now, when I say lifelong, I'm pretty much right on with that. I'm 66 as of this month, and really ever since I can remember. I'd probably say my first memories of maybe something going on was back when I was about 7, and I remember being in school and noticing that on my hands, the skin between my fingers was white. It looked white, very dry. And I remember trying to lick my between my fingers to wet that, to kind of mask it, because I was self-conscious about the fact that my fingers were showing that whiteness there. And never really suffered from anything there. It wasn't, I don't remember it being particularly itchy or any of those issues, but it was something I noticed. And then by my teens, I was having some psoriasis appearing on my shins. Now, when I say it's psoriasis, I know that there are many skin conditions, whether it's eczema, psoriasis, so forth. Mine was diagnosed by biopsy, so I'm pretty confident in calling it psoriasis. And it was on my shins, and very, very itchy shins. And even today, I mean, on my shins, there's scarring from scratching those when I was a teenager. By my college years, it was still there, but it wasn't as, maybe I learned to control it a little bit more. And of course, like everybody, right? Cortisone creams, you name it. And especially those days, and I'm going back now to the 70s and 80s, well, we weren't that concerned about steroids and how that might affect you long term, you know, just slathering on the steroid cream to help, hoping it would help. And of course it never really did. Maybe take a little bit of the edge off, the itchiness for just a little while. And so that was okay, that was one thing. And then by the time I was in my early 20s, it really rooted itself in where it has stayed ever since, and that is the Palmoplantar Psoriasis, meaning your hands and your feet. Now I'm going to show you a picture a little bit later of just how bad it was. I'm going to bring that up in just a little while. But for years, I mean for many years, since my 20s, and again I'm 66 this month, so 40 some years of dealing with it. And when I say dealing with it, unsightly, painful, broken skin. I remember because for a lot of my professional life, wearing suits and ties, and I was on the road a lot. So I'd be in a hotel getting ready to go do my work for the day and trying to put on the, you know, shirt and the tie, the white tie, pardon me, the white shirt with the tie, and I'm trying to button that top button, and of course my fingertips are red and raw and they're bleeding, and suddenly I notice, oh my, darn it, I got blood on the collar, and I'm taking off the shirt and I'm trying to get the blood out of it. And I mean, this was my daily routine. It's just, if you deal with it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And those of you with other psoriasis, you have your own challenges. Let's face it, there are other things you're dealing with. So it's the unsightliness in my other life. I'm retired from the practice of law now, practiced for, well, been licensed for 41 years, but estate planning practice, and so there's a lot of papers. People come in to sign the wills and the trusts, and my hands, they were horrible. You know, they were horrible looking, and I would have to try to hide them. I'd be having client meetings, and my hands are under the desk. I know some of you can probably identify with that. And then when I had to actually help them sign and show them sign here, sign there, I mean, I'm very careful saying, well, what can I do to hide the broken skin? Because I knew it was unsightly. I think the thing that really got me the most, one of my very best friends had his first child. And I understand completely. I'm not saying they were wrong. And so the new mother, you know, I see the child. I love kids. I love when my kids were little. And so this was many years ago, but I remember they had the little baby, and I went to hold the baby, and the mother was nervous, and I picked up right away. She really was concerned whether it was a good idea for me with my skin condition to touch the baby. Again, I have no problem with how she felt. I'd probably feel the same way. I'm not saying she was wrong. but I could just tell you, as someone who's dealing with psoriasis, having those type of interactions, sometimes it can't be easy. There were times, for example, you go to shake hands, if you have it on your hands, and often it manifests itself most viciously in the blade of the hand and the heel of the hand. And if you've got it on the blade of the hand and that skin is broken, go to shake hands with somebody, firm grip, a handshake, that can be very painful. And so I remember visiting some friends. We went to church on a Sunday morning with them. And of course, I'm meeting lots of new people, and I thought everything's going to be fine. Then that first handshake came, must have split the skin, and I felt it like a twinge. And then, of course, you're nervous about shaking hands again, right? And so I think I came off as maybe a little antisocial because I was reluctant to do the handshake. It was more like, well, pleased to meet you. And then, of course, you got to shake the hand, but I was being very careful. Just to say, it's something we deal with. Well, were there ever any periods along the way when my skin was clear? And unless I was doing something, and by doing something, I think on 2 occasions, I had steroid injections that a doctor gave me. The first time I had a steroid injection, I thought it was a miracle because for 6 months, just roughly 6 months, maybe 5 months, 6 months, I was clear. Wow, it was fantastic. And I thought, well, 1 shot every 6 months, maybe that's not so bad. And sure enough, I went back for a second shot. It lasted literally for about 2 weeks. So you know how resistant that can be. And it was certainly resistant with me. And then, that was maybe a period of 6 months. I was relatively clear. Okay, that was amazing. And then really, other than maybe a few days here and there that you might get a little relief, the next time I had any significant clearance was about 2014. I was doing the juice fast, where you're juicing everything, the greens, the this, the that, everything, making juice. And I did that for 9 weeks, and about 6 or 7 weeks into the 9 weeks, it was clear. And again, I thought, this is a miracle, but I knew that I couldn't stay on a juice fast. That's not a way to live. You can't do that for life. And I don't know if it even would have worked for life, but for at least for that little bit of time, and I lost weight, and I got the skin clear, and I really was very, very high on this juicing. And I thought to myself, well, okay, I can't live on this, but who knows, maybe every 3 or 4 months I can do a juice fast, maybe I can keep it in control. It just wasn't a very workable solution, and that fell by the wayside. So other than a little bit of clearance, probably just a few weeks in that juice fast, again, I was kind of back to where I started. And so I've tried everything. And whether it be because I want to be a little thinner, or I want my hands to be better, or whatever it is, I've tried every diet you can imagine. If it's a diet, I've tried it. I've tried Atkins, I've tried any kind of thing, whether it be, I was a vegetarian, complete vegetarian. I think I did have, I'm trying to remember if I had eggs or not. I don't remember, it's been a long time. But it was 7 years. 7 years as a vegetarian. And the thing is, I always loved meat. As a child, I wanted the meat. I didn't care for the other stuff. But I just thought, this is what everybody's telling you should do. So I thought, I'll try vegetarian. And I'm good. And when I do something, I'm strict. If I was vegetarian for 7 years, believe me, I was vegetarian for 7 years. Again, don't remember if I had cheese and eggs. I might have made ovo-lacto, vegetarian. Maybe I was at that time. I just don't recall. I know I didn't have any meat. I remember going through Thanksgivings and no turkey and all that. But I can do any of those diets, but they weren't giving me what I needed. And I didn't see them as a lifestyle. Now, I think a lot of it has to do with education. Today, we know how bad things can be for you. I think back to, and some of you may be old enough to remember, when the diet drinks became really popular early in, this is probably what, in the 60s maybe? And then they were sweetened with something they call cyclamates. And of course, very quickly, people said, no, these are bad for you. So those went off the market, but remember, had those. We didn't think about it. At the time, we did all those things which probably were not healthy, probably did things to us that hopefully we could recover from, who knows, over those many years. I did the diet soda thing, whether it be the aspartame or you name it. I had all that stuff over the years. I was really, for a while, I was really into Pepsi One. If you remember Pepsi One, maybe they still have it, I don't know. but I was heavy in the Pepsi one. And again, not thinking about what could be the impact of that. Doing some reading about some of these artificial sweeteners and how it might be something that could lead to dementia later on. That got me off of that. But until that point, I mean, we did all those things. And then finally, the carnivore diet. And I was aware of the carnivore diet. I'd heard about it. I think most of us heard about it. And I knew that it appealed to me because, once again, I like meat. I mean, if somebody said, hey, you know, we're going to have pork chops, but unfortunately we don't have anything to go with it, I'd be, that's fine. Give me the pork chops. I'm happy. Give me the steak. Give me the hamburger. In fact, interesting, I never really cared for hot dogs. I would prefer the hamburger just because it was more meat. I wanted that meat. And so the carnivore diet was something I said, you know, and I listened to the YouTube things just like everybody does. And I said, you know, this really does make sense. It makes perfect sense. I had bought into the idea that, well, we can't possibly be carnivores. I mean, you know, we don't have the fangs really other than little canine teeth. We don't have this. We don't have claws. So we can't be carnivores. We have to be probably omnivore. I don't know if we ever thought we were truly just herbivore, but you know, maybe omnivore. But I've come to understand there's so much evidence to indicate that we really are primarily carnivore and maybe an opportunistic omnivore, right? Fruit in season, I'm sure our ancestors ate that. You're passing by a berry bush that's in season, I'm sure they partook of that. And I'm sure in other circumstances. But really, we are carnivore. And so when I came to believe that and understand that, that gave me the permission mentally to commit to the carnivore diet, which I really wanted to do anyway. And so I committed to the carnivore diet in February, about February 6th of 2024. It is now, tomorrow will be February 1 of 2025. Today's 31st of January. And so it's been almost a year. And I have been a strict carnivore. And I say strict, but let me tell you about my carnivore. So I do have eggs, dairy, but so rarely. Because I know that part of what I like about carnivore is that you can potentially slim down a bit. And I'm of the opinion that doing the dairy can impede some of that. So I've had very, very, very little dairy. I'm not against it necessarily. I know some people are. But I've had very, very little dairy. And by that I mean cheese, and in one circumstance, some heavy cream. But you know, the reason why I don't have that, first of all, I don't need it. But number two is when you look at that heavy cream, as you've probably noticed, if you read the ingredients, and you should be reading the ingredients of everything you're putting in your mouth, most of the heavy cream you'll find, whipping cream, heavy cream, has some type of gum in it or other stabilizers. You don't want to have that. You don't want to ingest that. And so I did happen one time at Whole Foods to find a very overpriced bottle of heavy cream, just cream. And I bought it to use. I used it to make some eggs and tried a little bit. And, you know, that was great. It was fun while it lasted. One bottle, that was it. And we went through that, and my wife enjoyed that as well. But so really not much dairy. And then maybe on 3 or 4 occasions, some berries in season, but limited, because obviously I didn't want to get into that too heavy. We were in Europe, and I mean, some of those berries, so fresh, organic, some mulberries in season, blackberries, raspberries, on like I say, 3 or 4 occasions over the year. And then the other thing I've had, and I wasn't doing it at all, I had gotten off of coffee completely, but I've allowed myself occasionally to have some coffee. I honestly don't know that I'm going to continue doing that because I don't think it does anything for me. And honestly, it's a plant. I don't want to be ingesting the plant. I know there might be some things that it could benefit, but overall, I just don't want to do that. And then alcohol. Okay, so alcohol. I didn't have anything. But then when we did go to a vacation, we were in Europe, we visited a couple vineyards. I partook in a couple of the wine tastings. Again, probably over everything in that trip. If it was a total of 2 glasses, 3 glasses overall, I'd be surprised. That was over maybe 3 weeks. And then a couple of family events, I've had probably another, let's say 3 or 4 glasses of wine in the year. So maybe a total of 6 or 7 glasses of wine, and then one drink with spirits, and that's it for the year. And I don't know that I need that. I don't really need it. I kept telling myself, it's nice socially to have the drink, especially in a party. But the last couple of times I had any wine, I couldn't even finish it. It just didn't taste good. And I'm wondering, why am I doing this? Just to be social? Just to say I did it? And I said, no, I don't need this. And so I haven't even tried it. So that's why I think I'm very good with not doing that going forward. I'm not totally against it. I think if someone did that occasionally, right? But I do know that it takes a while for your body to clear that poison. And I don't want to be putting poisons into my body. But in the interest of complete transparency, that's how my year has gone. I've probably dropped 25 pounds. So I haven't had the miraculous weight loss that a lot of people have doing the carnivore diet, where they said, oh man, I went on the carnivore diet in 6 months, I lost 85 pounds. That'd be great. I don't know if I needed to lose quite 85 pounds, but maybe, who knows? So I started out, I'd gotten up a little heavier than I normally am. I think when I started, I was maybe 235 to 240, which for me, and I'm about 5'10 and a half, 5'11", maybe I'd say my 5'10 and a half is probably closer. But I mean, that's a lot of weight for a guy like me to be carrying. So I'm about 25 pounds down from that. I, in my lifetime, have been at times lighter. In fact, I've been as little as about 162 pounds. You ever been in a pool, and it's a deep pool, and you want to touch the bottom, and you kind of hold your breath, and you go down and you swim vigorously down to the bottom of the pool, and you touch the bottom, but then you spring right back up. That's me hitting 162 and going right back up to the top, right? So I've done that, right? And I've done everything. I did the OptiFast thing back when Oprah did the OptiFast thing. We did about the same time. We lost about the same amount of weight, but of course she gained hers back and I gained my back. So my point is, though, I didn't have the miraculous, unbelievable, incredible, full weight loss that so many people seem to have on this. But that's okay, because I think it's a process. And really, as I got into it, I started thinking, what is this going to do for my hands? What is it going to do for my feet? What is it going to do for my psoriasis? Because nothing had been a cure. I don't expect a cure. And I can tell you right now, carnivore, I don't think anyone can say is a cure. But can it control these things? Now, as I said, I'm going to show you a picture of what my hands look like. So I've got a picture. I took a picture once of one of the hands. So I'm going to show you that. I'll put it up in this video. So I'll be putting that photo in. So you'll see it now. And you can see, I mean, that's what my hands were like most of the time, with occasional worse and occasional better. That's what my hands look like. And here are my hands today. Here, I'll come up a little closer, and you can see both of these hands. Now, over the course of a lifetime of having the psoriasis and the condition, I have a loss of some pigment here, right? That's probably never going to come back. I'm okay with that. What am I going to do? I'm not a hand model. But, a loss of some pigment here, that's probably never going to go away. It's still there's a little thickening of the skin. It's not, compared to what it was, it's amazing. Amazing. Nothing's ever done that. And same thing with the other hand. Again, it's a little loss of pigment here. And even on the heel of the hand on both sides. But look at that. That's amazing. I've had this now. When I started the carnivore diet, when I had it, I went into it, right? And my hands were bad. We'd just come back from a family vacation in the Dominican Republic. We went to an all-inclusive place. And we had the drinks, and we had the food, and I mean, I ate like a nut, and I was heavier than I'd been in a long time. And I came back and I said, if I'm going to do this, let me just do it. And so I said, well, I wonder if my hands are going to respond like I hope they will. And it didn't happen right away. And it was a month, it was 2 months, it was 3 months. And my wife is asking me, I thought you said that might help your hands. I said, be patient. I'm going to be patient. These things take time. I've had it for a lifetime. I can't expect it to go like that. So a month, 2, 3, in that, I would think roughly about the 4th month, I started to see it clearing. And I was like, wow, I think it's better. I think the thing that was amazing to me, my skin, which was like it was almost like having if you have this, you know what I'm talking about, it's like thick skin, and you feel like that little, almost like it's, you're wearing a glove almost, right? But your thick skin on your hands. I said, I really think my skin is getting thinner. I think that accelerated skin production, skin cell production that is part of what makes psoriasis, I think that's slowing down. And the fissures started to go away. I was like, oh my God, this is working. And so for probably now, it's been probably 5 months that they've been in this condition. That is the longest time. I mentioned I had about 6 months with the cortisone, but that was cortisone. This is the longest period of clearance I've ever had without a medication or something that's going to hurt me in some other ways. And it is amazing. I hope it's going to get even better. I can't call it curing. I don't think anyone that has susceptibility to this, I think once you have psoriasis or any of the other conditions, or you're prone to diabetes, or you're prone to whatever. I'm no doctor, but I would think once you're prone to it, you probably have to be careful about it. But this is amazing to me. And by the way, using my hands, being able to open things without any, or use tools or do things without any fear that I'm going to split the skin and have to suffer with it. That's like a new lease on life. And the carnivore diet did that. So if you are dealing with the autoimmune, and especially if you're dealing with psoriasis, give it a shot. And don't expect it to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you stick with it, you're going to see some improvement. And like I said, about 4 months in, I got to about almost where I am now. It seems to be getting a little better continuously. But I had that use of my hands. It was great, and I was thinking, wow, this is really something. One of the things I'll just mention in this video, in my quest to find things that would help me, I tried a couple of things. Many of you are familiar with Stephen Gundry, Dr. Stephen Gundry. I actually respect Dr. Gundry immensely. He talks a lot about the lectins and how they can really be dangerous, and how plants have these defense mechanisms. And of course, you'll hear you'll hear all of the doctors, but especially Dr. Anthony Chaffee talk about that a lot too. But Dr. Gundry really, I think, brought that to the public forum, right, talking about lectins. And his books are very interesting. And I did follow his diet for a couple of years. It didn't clear my hands like this at all. Maybe a slight amount of relief. It didn't work for me on a psoriasis. I was not committed to it. I respect him a lot. I think he's got a lot of good ideas. But I think, my opinion, and I really like the guy, I think that he made the commitment to understanding that lectins are dangerous, plants are dangerous, but then, hey, this is the world we live in. We need to eat plants because that's what we do, and so let's figure a way to eat them in a way that makes them less dangerous. And he's made that commitment, and he's done well with it as a practice. I think he's helped a lot of people, but it didn't help me. If it's something you want to give a shot to, maybe it'll help you. And then the other thing I'll mention, and I think it's worth you looking at, especially if you've got psoriasis, he was a chiropractor. He's deceased now. And I believe John Pagano, I think John was his first name, Pagano, Dr. Pagano. And he wrote a book, Healing Psoriasis. And I had read that book years ago, long before I did the carnivore diet. And I found it very helpful in understanding things. And he talked about, for example, eating a lot. Lamb was a thing he talked about, which is a ruminant animal. And I think he anecdotally and dealing with many, many patients over the years, even though he was a chiropractor, he kind of specialized in this somehow. And his book is I think a must-read for anybody with psoriasis. John Pagano's Healing Psoriasis. But I want to bring out one thing. We hear a lot about oxalates and oxalate dumping. And if you've got the vegetables and you're eating those and you've been eating them, then it's very possible, you've got quite a buildup of these oxalates. And I remember in Dr. Pagano's book, he talked about how if you were to go on his diet, which again had the lamb and things, that his patients often would experience psoriasis basically flaring. They'd see relief, and then they'd see the psoriasis flare. And I must say, when I started doing the carnivore diet, I did have that flare, meaning I saw some relief, and then it came back with a fury. That was early on. that was early on. Just like Dr. Pagano was talking about, I honestly think that is evidence of this oxalate dumping. He didn't call it that. He didn't maybe identify it as that. But I kind of think that's what he was talking about. So if you have a chance, take a look at it. Anyway, that's my journey. I'm very happy. I'm going to keep updating you on how this is going. We're going to talk about a lot of things carnivore with the Nomad Carnivore. We've got some trips scheduled coming up. We're going to be documenting that for you. I can tell you, I was in Europe visiting many countries this summer, stayed carnivore. We're going to be abroad doing the Camino de Santiago, at least that's the plan this year. We're going to be carnivore there. So we'll be keeping you up to date with that. But thank you for taking this time. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll leave a comment. Leave a comment, especially if you've had some of the same experiences or a different experience. I'd love to hear from you. And until the next time, I am Vic, Nomad Carnivore. Goodbye and good luck.